Hello everyone. Today I'm working on this Dreyfuss Hudson, and it's a Rivarossi. It's amazingly cool. Little handrails out of its spot here. That's okay, that's easy to fix. I've had this for a little while now, and I have not been able to run it because I bought it like that with no tender. And I couldn't run it because the engine picks up one side of the track. I don't even know which side, but the engine picks up one side of the track, and the tender picks up the other side. Let's take a look at these. Take a look at the trailing wheels. Anyways, one of them picks up the power. One side picks up the power, and this looks to be like a really high quality engine. Looks really unbelievably cool. Although I couldn't run it on the track, I did find the time to test it on the bench. That I could do. Now that I'm looking at it, it seems obvious which side picks up electricity because this side has traction tires on it. So this side, I guess, picks up electricity. And it seems to be a really good runner. I'm probably going to do some very light tuning on it, but seems to be everything seems to be right where it should be. Looks like an amazing runner. So I went on the internet and I found a tender. It's obviously not the correct tender for it, but it's a Rivarossi tender. And this actually is all set up for this engine. It picks up the power from this side. So that's awesome. I'm gonna start by taking this apart, and I'll clean it. And I'm gonna wanna paint this gray right away. No sense in waiting. To take the tender apart, it's just 3 screws. 1, 2, 3, and then the floor comes out. And this I'm gonna paint gray, but I'm gonna wash it just before I do. Same thing with that, restoration required. I think I'll remove the trucks now. And then I'll clean it up also. Very important to remember which side has contacts and which side it's insulated. These wheels here, they're plastic, and these wheels are brass, so these go back at the exact same place. I'm gonna let this dry thoroughly, and I will tape up the coal because I want to leave that black. Same with the tender floor. You can see the manufacturer here, Mantua. So it will still power my Rivarossi engine. I want to keep track of my my screws, where they go. So there you go. I have to remove this plate before I can remove the wheels and then clean them. That shouldn't be too hard. Even though this tender was a little bit dusty, it is not in bad shape. There's no oxidation, so everything's really easy to remove. Just like that. I'm gonna go clean these. I'll do them one at a time. That way I won't mix up the order. On nickel silver parts, I would never use the steel wool but on the brass parts I do. There. So that's going to be good for electrical pickup. Just to show you a little difference between how they came out when before and after. There. So yeah, I do use the steel wool on the brass parts. Why we call this Dreyfuss Hudson? It's because the guy who drew the plans for this, for the styling, is called Henry Dreyfuss, and he did a marvelous job. I mean, look at this thing. It looks like it's moving while it's standing still. This is beautiful. That's why people collect trains, because they are so beautiful. And he deserves to have his name kept for posterity. So these were made in the 30s, and even today, you know, they still look sleek and fast. So designed in the 30s, imagine that. I'm gonna try not to take the whole thing apart because it's running pretty well. However, this trailing truck here seems to be very easy to remove. Same with the pilot truck. Yeah, that was pretty easy. And the pilot truck is the same thing. Now while I have these off, it's going to be easy to clean the wheels. And I'm cleaning the wheels, it's going to be mainly for looks. Now it seems like there's a little bit of binding, or there's a gear that's not in perfect shape. I'm going to see if it's hard or easy to get to that. So these you can see here, made in Italy. So that is pretty old. What I paid for this was not a lot of money. So I feel pretty good about this purchase. These little pins here contact electricity from the track. So they have a little spring. They have a little spring in there to contact the electricity. These are little hex bolts on each side. They weren't on there very tight, so I just loosened them with my pliers, and then I'm able to remove them. And that will allow me to remove just that number 3 driver. And then with that off, I can check the rest of the mechanism. That should be, I'm just gonna make sure these don't get caught up in anything. It should be pretty smooth. That feels pretty smooth actually. So you can see I only have these 2 pins here contacting the wheels. That looks like a good quality engine. I didn't want to take this all apart, but it's going so well. So to remove the shell, I have these 2 screws in the back, and I have a big one in the front, and the shell just comes out. That's going to allow me to get in there and take a good look at everything. Actually, everything's looking real good so far. I have to be careful for this wire for my light. I kind of like the light. Now I have everything easily accessible. It does seem like it's got a ton of lubrication already. I'm gonna put just a drop on the worm gear, and then another drop on the front of the motor for the bearing. And then I'll spin that by hand, letting the oil penetrate by gravity and capillarity. And I'm gonna run it on the bench just a little bit, just to see what happens. And I will do the same thing for the backside of the bearing. Put a little drop of oil on that. It's got a lot of lubrication already. So this intermediate shaft here, I'll give it just a little bit too. So I have this driver in my hand, so it's going to be real easy to clean that. Okay, you can see my rags turning black. So this was pretty dirty. There's a little spacer here. I definitely want to keep track of that. And then on the traction tire side, I'm going to do the same thing but very light. Although that's dirty too. It's going to make it look better. And also, it keeps my track clean to have all clean wheels. So I go lightly on this because the traction tire is very old, but I'm going to clean it as well. You can still hear a bit of noise. It's the drive shaft. The drive shaft is not 100% symmetrical. So it still rubs against something inside the engine. I'm not sure I can get to what's rubbing because I have the wire for the light that's in the way. But the engine will run fine like that even though there's a little bit of noise. So I have been fooling around with this a little bit. Seems as if it's the drive shaft here that makes noise. So I guess it just runs like that, with a little noise like that. So I'm gonna start putting everything back together. While I have this opened up, you can see there's a lot of extra detail that's really cool. You can see here the air tanks with the line, and then there's the two air compressors here, right where they should be. That's a really nice, really high quality engine. All the valve gear is beautiful. I'm gonna button everything back up. And also they made this front part easily removable, so you can change out your bulb if you ever need to. I also put this plate back because the wheels would keep popping out, and that was annoying. Everything rolls well though. So I've got to clean these wheels still. So I'm gonna roll them, and with my rags I'm gonna polish them out. So do about a quarter and then roll them, do another quarter. If you want to clean up steam engine wheels without disassembling everything, that's how you do it. Takes a little patience, but brings good results. The other way that people do this cleaning, if they want to take things apart, they buy a machine. Some of the manufacturers have a machine with steel or brass bristles that are powered. So the locomotive will turn the wheel for you, and the steel or the brass bristles will clean the locomotive for you. I'll let you look at the part that I did, that I cleaned. Makes a big difference. So that's it. Takes a little extra effort, but it's worth it. And also, as I clean it, I'll turn it like that, just to make sure that I didn't bend any of the rods. So that's feeling pretty good. I'm just gonna do the other side. Well, this is shaping up nice. I'm gonna remove this plate again. That screwdriver was too big. I don't put a lot of torque on these bolts. You can see here these little pins collect electricity. They have a little spring. So the number 3 driver here doesn't have one. Sorry, the number 2 driver doesn't have one. So I'm going to put this back together. On the traction tire, I won't run it too hard. So this doesn't have to be timed perfectly because I can still move these around as much as I need to. So I can time this later when I install the rods. And when I took it apart, I did not pay attention, but it has these little spacers to space them out. You can see on the number 1 driver it's still there. So that I should have been a little bit more careful. Well, I think this one's missing altogether. But anyways, I'm gonna put the ones that I have. So every time I add a part, I always come back and retest it, making sure that everything's running well. Now I'm gonna line up my little spacers. Wow, that is not as easy as I thought. You know, in N scale, there's really small parts, but I guess HO has small parts too. So I have to line that up. And then my rod. So here's where I do the timing. So then I can bring in my rod. And then my other spacer. Actually, I'm pretty sure that goes under that. That's what makes the most sense. And then my rod. And then that little pin. I guess this one is a bolt. There you go. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. And then I'll test it again with everything in, just to make sure. But of course I started with this running, so of course it's still running. But I'm just making sure that I put everything back together the way it was supposed to be. That looks pretty good. I also cleaned the pilot truck, and this is nice. I mean, it's got a little spring making sure that there's weight on it. You know, this is really good stuff. This engine, I looked at some videos of what's available. Nice HO scale engines that run well, and this was on the top of the list. It's good. And I do clean them like that. This, I don't think this picks up a lot of electricity, but I just want them to look shiny. Do you guys remember chrome wheels on your cars? That's gone out of style now. Now the young people, they like to have black painted wheels on their cars. I suppose that's okay too, but I cannot have black painted wheels on my car because it's gonna drive me crazy. black painted wheels, you do 2 street corners and they're dirty again. So this, I'm always careful when I'm manipulating these engines because they have been around for a long time and the plastic can get brittle. So this part seems to be in good shape and I want to mess with it. So I'm just going to do it with my rag on there. But this also has a little spring to put tension on it. So that's amazing. Really cool stuff. I also washed it with some water and some dish soap. Now I can start putting this back together. That should slide right in there. There we go. I can loosen up this plate just a tiny little bit while I'm doing that, while I'm doing the front and the back. So this won't pick up any electricity because it's plastic on plastic. But, you know, think about that. This whole engine, the whole engine, there's just 2 little springs picking up electricity. That is not state of the art. Well, we'll see how it runs. I don't have any switches, so that's going to help. But, you know, nowadays I think they have more wheels picking up electricity. I would like to have more wheels picking up electricity, more than 2. This pilot truck, maybe it picks up electricity. I don't know for sure. That would be nice. But as far as I can tell, there's just 2 wheels. So that's that. Now I can put my tender on. It's already shaping up good though. So as I put my tender together, I better pay attention to which way my trucks are gonna ride. So this side's picking up electricity here. That means this side has to be picking up electricity on the tender. So the tender's got 4 wheels picking up electricity. That is a good improvement. Yeah, you don't want to confuse that. You know, if you put the wheels, let's say I put these wheels back. If I put that last wheel, if I put it like that, it's going to cause a short circuit and I don't want that. Same thing if I put it all the wheels on the wrong side, my tender is going to pick up from the same side of the track and I won't be moving. So I don't want that either. So I'm just going to put these little retainer plate thingies off camera. I hope these videos are not too boring for you guys. Sometimes, you know, videos could be as interesting as watching paint dry. In fact, that's my next step. I'm waiting for the paint to dry on my tender. I painted it light gray to match the engine. I just happened to have the right color on hand. I'm struggling with the screw because I can't see what I'm doing. It's tough to do it on camera. I must be so close. Here we go, so that one's done. And then this one I'll tighten it just to be sure. So that's that. Now I'm waiting for my tender paint to dry. So let's do that. Let's watch some paint dry. I'm enjoying my coffee. Coffee's good. Okay, enough of that. We'll continue this tomorrow. Okay, then we are the next day. I sure wish I had some New York Central decals, which I don't. I'm gonna leave this shiny. This is okay. I'm also gonna remove the masking tape over that. I keep the coal black. Now that is a Mantua tender, and the Locomotive is from Rivarossi. So everything's a little bit different. On the Rivarossi tender, there's a pin that goes down and hooks up to this, and everything works fine. On the Mantua, it's a little bit different to have a screw. So we're gonna find out if these work together. So I'm just gonna put the screw on that, and that will be that. It's not super hard to put them together, but it's not super graceful either. As far as the height, it looks like it's gonna be okay. That we'll only know by testing it on the track. On this, the other side, you can see this little spring here. That keeps tension on the pin so that you have good electrical contact. So that's real nice to have. The end scale is exactly the same, and that works good. On a project like this, there's a lot of screws. So where are my tender screws? They're right here. So you gotta have a system to keep track of which screw goes where. So I decided to just put them on there. Just put them on there, and you know something? I'm thinking probably if I was a gajillionaire, that's probably something I would do. I would like to do still, fix up old trains, fix up old cars, fix up old trains. That's what money does. It amplifies what you are. So if, let's say you like alcohol, if you have a bunch of money, you can get even more alcohol. It's just like the mask, you know, if you're a mean person, getting a bunch of money makes you meaner. And if you're a good person, it makes you better, so you can give more money to charity. All right, I'm gonna put these back, and then I'll put the coupler back as well. Actually, not that hard to put them back in. So you gotta have a system to figure out what to do with your screws. If you put everything in one box, that's good, you won't lose them. But then you gotta remember which screw goes where. This way makes it pretty easy. I'm gonna put the coupler box. The coupler box, interestingly, you have to put the cover first, and then you can put the little pad. So that is Mantua. I've never had this before, so that's really, really new to me. does that look? That looks pretty good. I don't have a real good train for this. The 20th Century Limited, I'm sure somebody made it. It's just a little bit on the expensive side. We'll see how this engine runs. I may get it later on, since I do like these streamlined passenger cars from the 30s and 40s. These are good looking to me. And I'm keeping the horn hook coupler because I do have some passenger cars. They're silver, so they will look okay with this locomotive. I have some passenger cars and they have horn hook couplers. They're old. I suppose everything I have is old. Actually, strangely enough, to get in there I should remove the truck. Yep. That is just the way it is. There. So that's going to work, and then I'll put this one back on there. There. Checking everything out. Looks pretty good. It's gonna run, but I'm having issues with my tender. The tender doesn't pick up electricity quite enough. So I'm gonna re-clean the contacts, and I'm gonna put a little bit more weight to it. So it's close, very close to running. Well, that did it. Now it's a super good runner. I'm sure glad I got this engine. It's beautiful and it runs great. Makes a little bit of noise backwards, but it's still not too bad. And quiet too. So I'm going to throw some passenger cars in the back of it. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly had fun making it for you. See you soon.